The story of Prahalada. There is a strange old Hindu notion according to which a very young child is said to be like a fish. Then comes a time when all the baby's eagerness is for food. His little arms and legs and head are like so many small appendages, almost always kicking. This stage of development suggests the tortoise. Next, the baby creeps on all fours, how like a boar. Then it begins to leap forward and fall down, half man, half lion. After this, it becomes a dwarf or a little man. The toddler stage. At last comes the age of the heroes, Rama and Krishna, who make it possible to be a Buddha. Altogether, the Hindus count 10 of these degrees or steps and call them the 10 incarnations of Lord Vishnu. Gradually, each stage has come to have its own wonder tale attached to it. And perhaps the story of Prahalada is the legend that grew up about the idea of a man lion. Hiranyakashipu was the king of the Daityas or the demons. Now, these demons are cousins of the Devas or gods, and the two parties are always at war with each other. The gods rule the three worlds, their own, the upper, the middle where men dwell, and the nether, or the abode of the demons. But occasionally the demons gain control, seizing the thrones of the gods and usurping their power. Then the gods have to go to Vishnu, the preserver, and pray to him to help them out of the difficulty. And sometimes he does it in a very curious way. In such an epoch, Hiranyakashipu lived and was king. He defeated all the gods and seated himself on the throne of the three worlds, declaring that nowhere in the universe was there any god but himself, and that both demons and men must worship him alone. Then, in fear of a coming catastrophe, the gods themselves began to walk the earth in the form of men, and doubtless they appealed also to the Lord Vishnu. In any case, soon after the king's victory, a little son was born to him, and he named him Prahalada. Curiously enough, with such a father, the little Prahalada proved to be a very religious child. He seemed to have inborn ideas about worship and about the gods, and his father, who had determined to drive the thought of the deities out of the world, was very much troubled about him. At last he made up his mind to put him into the hands of a very stern teacher with strict orders that he was never to be allowed to worship anyone but his own father. The teacher, to have better control, took the prince to his own home, and it was all to no purpose. When they taught him his alphabets, showing him the letter K, "Yes, that is for Krishna," the child would reply and learn it eagerly. "G for Gopala," said Prahalada, and everything that they could teach him, he applied it once in this way. Not only did he himself talk of nothing but Krishna, he spent much of his time also teaching his worship to the boys around him. This was too much, and after struggling in vain to reform his pupil, the distressed schoolmaster felt that he must appeal to Hiranyakashipu, or the mischief would soon spread too far to be set right. The king's anger was great, and he sent for his son. "I hear that you have been worshipping Krishna," he thundered. And when the little boy, who had been brought away from his books, stood before the throne, "Yes, father," said Prahalada bravely, "I have. Are you going to promise me that you will never do it again?" asked the king, and he looked very terrible, while the royal jewel in his turban shook with rage. "No, father, I cannot promise," said the poor little Prahalada. "You cannot promise?" shouted his father, in amazement at his daring son. "But I can have you killed." "Not unless it is the will of Krishna," said the child firmly. "We will see about that," said Hiranyakashipu. He ordered his guards to take Prahalada and throw him, though he was his own son, down to the bottom of the ocean and there pile up rocks on top of him. He hoped up to the last minute that the little one would be frightened and run back to give the promise he required. But Prahalada did not come. The fact was, he was worshipping Krishna in his own heart with such a feeling of joy, love, and happiness that he had scarcely heard his father's words, and did not even notice when they put him on a stone slab and piled huge blocks up on top of him and threw him. He never noticed. He had forgotten all about himself. It was the secret of it. But no rocks could keep down the one who forgot himself like this. So everything fell aside and he rose again to the surface of the water. Then Prahalada remembered, and at once he found himself kneeling on the shore face to face with the Lord Krishna himself. The lotus-eyed smiled gently. Light seemed to be streaming out round him in all directions, and he put his hand on Prahalada's head to bless him, saying, "My child, ask of me what thou wilt." "O Lord," said Prahalada, "I don't want long life or riches or anything of that sort, but do give me a love of God that shall never change in my heart. However much things may come and go around me, that in the midst of this changeful world I may cherish unchanging love for thee, O thou unchangeable. This alone is my wish." "Prahalada," said Lord Krishna solemnly, "you shall always be my soldier and my lover." Then everything that was beautiful disappeared, for the king's guards found Prahalada again and were carrying him once more into his father's presence. "Who brought you out of the sea?" said the king, scarcely believing his eyes. "Krishna," said the child. "What name dared you to utter?" said his father, growing purple with fury. "Krishna's," said Prahalada. "Where is this Krishna of yours?" asked Hiranyakashipu. Prahalada's eyes opened wide in wonder. "Why," he said, "he is everywhere." "Even in this pillar?" asked the king mockingly. "Yes, even in that pillar," answered his little son. The king uttered a loud, jarring laugh. He Let him appear to me then, he cried, in whatever form and deed best please him. Terrible words and the wonderful prayer of Hiranyakashipu, beyond, great beyond that of common men, must have been his power. For at this demand, ringing out into the ears of the Lord himself, the pillar cracked from side to side, and out sprang one, half like a man and half like a lion, who leapt upon him and tore him into pieces. So the demons were driven out, and the Devas took their own places once more. But some say that the soul of Hiranyakashipu was glad of this release, and these hold that he was the same who in some later birth became Ravana, the king of Lanka, and who yet came into the world as Shishupala. For once upon a time, long ago, they say, a great sainted soul had been driven back to birth by some evil fate, but a choice had been offered to him. He might pass out of this bondage, it was said, after 7 births as the friend of God, or 3 as his enemy. Without a moment's doubt, he chose 3 births as enemy, that he might the sooner return to God. Wherefore he became Hiranyakashipu and Ravana, and yet again Shishupala, whose story is still to tell. Thank you.